Hello everyone, welcome to Laratips. In our previous video, we completed the Crud of the user section, and in this video, we will be doing the Crud of the categories. Before that, let me show you this notion that I have created whenever I showed you this series the first time. Here is the categories, and let us create the category fields like this. And before starting this video, I'd like you to introduce to this whole series sponsor, which is Cloudways. Cloudways is a managed cloud hosting platform which focuses on your business and avoid all the web hosting hassles. Cloudways will take care of the server setup for you, and you can go live in minutes using the Cloudways. You can select any one of these applications like WordPress, Laravel, PHP, etc. and you can host those in any one of these servers like DigitalOcean, AWS, Vultr, Google Cloud or Linode. And also you can scale your server size as you need using the simple and easy user interface. You can use the link below to subscribe to Cloudways, and if you do so, you will get $15 as a credit. And you can use that $15 to set up a base server, and it will last you almost a month, which means that you are getting 1 month free. Now let's get started. So first of all, let us go to this e-commerce project and let us say PHP artisan make model category -m. So after that, let us go to this migration file and let us just fill all the fields. I have added all the fields over here, and we can see here parent ID, name, slog, active. After this, let us create a controller and let us duplicate the user's controller. Let us duplicate this and let us say categories controller. Now let me go to admin.php and let me write here categories, and here also categories controller. This thing is imported over here, and now let me go to handle inertia request and let me duplicate this, and here let me say here categories, and here will be categories with small letter. And I have already started this npm run watch also. Now after doing this, we can see here categories menu over here. Now let me go to categories controller and let me find for the, let's say, user like this, and let me search with this case sensitive search, and let us do users first. So we'll say here categories and replace all. Now with the capital U and capital C, replace all. We'll only search for user now, category, and then small u now with small c like this. And let me also go to role seeder, and here let me duplicate this, and here we'll say categories and everything will be category like this. Now here in the categories controller, everything has been renamed. So first of all, let us write the listing page. Here is the index. Before that, let us go here in the category, and here let us write some relationship. The relationship will children, and it will have many children, so we'll say return this has many category class and parent ID. It will be like this, because if we look here, then we have added over here parent ID, and here we'll say has many, and it will be imported on the top. Similarly, it will have this parent also, so we'll just duplicate this, and instead of children we'll say parent, and it will be belongs to and belongs to category parent ID. It will be the same thing. And let us also write some of the scopes which we can use. So we'll say public function scope root builder return builder where null parent ID. If the parent ID is null, then they will be the root categories. Similarly, I'll duplicate this, and instead of root I'll say here active, and I'll say here where active will be true. Similarly, we'll do for the inactive as well. So here will be inactive and active will be false, and we'll also cast it over here cast, and active will be boolean. We already have this active field over here. Now let me go to this categories controller here. So let me select ID, parent ID, name created at, and active over here. Now we'll not have this with roles relationship because there aren't any roles of the categories, but we'll show the children count in the UI. So we'll say here with count relationship that we made children. Now it will just add children underscore count on the select. So after this, the name field will be same, and first of all we'll only show the root categories. I am able to write here root because I have created here this scope root over here like this. And if you don't know about scopes in Laravel, then I have created a detailed video tutorial about that. I'll be leaving the link of that video just below that like button. We'll not have any email. Similarly, there will also not be any role ID. We'll also have the filter for the active and inactive. So I'll just do here when if the request active is not equal to null, because if I only check for the request active, then even if there is 0 or false, then it will return false value. So it will not execute this. In this closure, it will not execute it. So I have to write it like this. Now here inside, so I'll just write here builder, and here I'll say builder when request active. Now here either it will be true or false. If it is not null, then we'll be checking it, and if it is active, then we'll say here function builder will only show the active. And similarly after that, if it is not active or if it is inactive, then we'll show here inactive like this, because we have made these scopes over here, this active and inactive, so we can use here like this. So let me do it like this. And here is the category index, and I'll pass all the categories over here that are being paginated over here, and let me do 100 over here because we'll show all the categories. And here we'll show name, children count, active, created at, and actions. And here will the filters. This is the resource name and this is the roles. So instead of the roles, we'll pass the root categories over here, so that we'll be able to see that in the filters. So instead of roles, I'll say here root categories, category resource, and collection category root, get ID and name like this. And here it will be the same thing. And we also need to create this category resource. Also we need to create this category request as well, but first let us create this category request. So for that, we'll go here in the user resource, and I'll do duplicate, and I'll say here category resource, and here I'll write category resource like this. And now here will be name, and there is one thing that we can do. If I just go over here, then there is this new thing. So I'll just search for when not null, this one method. And if I just do when not null, then I don't have to pass this second parameter like this. Similarly, I can do for the slog like this, and I can just remove this thing. I don't need these roles, but I need children, let's say category resource. And similarly, let us do this same thing for, let's say, children count. If it is not null, then just return whatever the children count is. This thing will come from this categories controller, this with count. Now instead of user, we'll just write here category. Also we need here parent ID like this, and also we need active like this. And here in the parent ID, we just need to write this thing because it is a nullable field. And here in case of the active also, I think we can write it. So here name I'll write active like this. If it is not null, then only show it, and we can add it over here like this. So these are the things that we need in the resource. Now let me go here in the categories controller. That error is gone, and the error is for this categories request. So let me go here in the user request, and now let me duplicate it, and then I'll say categories request, and then I'll just replace it, and I'll just remove this and write another validation like this. And let me import this category. So for the parent ID, we'll have this parent ID name, slog, and active fields. Whenever we are creating the categories, this parent ID is the parent category. It should be existed in this categories, and it must be the root category because we'll be doing only 2 levels of categories. Then there is this name, and there is this slog, which must be unique. And here we'll say category. Similarly, active will be boolean. Now if I go here in the categories controller, then there is no any error. So first of all, let us look at this index. So now let me go to this user index view, and now let me duplicate this here, this user folder, and let me add it here inside the pages. And instead of user copy, I'll say here category, and inside here we don't need to change anything for now, but we'll just change this table field names, because if we go here in the category controller, then we have passed these things. So here this will be children count, then we have this active, so we'll just do here active for now, and then we have this created at. So I'll remove this thing from here. This is the created at formatted, and then we have this actions, which are this thing. and we don't need to change anything from here. Now let me go here and refresh the page, and let me open the console and go to categories, and we are seeing here this HTTP request category does not exist. Okay, this is request user, and now it is category because we did search and replace, so it replaced that user method. So we'll go here in the create function and let's say category like this, and we'll just write here user, and let me refresh the page over here and again go to these categories. Then I am not seeing anything, the white page, and in the console I am seeing this could not load the content and undefined. I think there is the roles in the prop of that category index because that was present in the user. So let me search for role, and here instead of roles I'll write root categories, and now here also I'll pass this root categories, and I'll say here categories like this. And let me go to the filters also, and let me search for role over here, and here I'll say categories, and here also I'll say categories parent ID, or we can also say category ID, but let's say parent ID. We don't need this email over here. Now let me come here and refresh the page. Then I can see here name, role, here are this book and dress, but if we go here instead of role I'll say category, and let me again refresh here. Then you can see a category, and there is book and dress category because I created these two categories before recording this video. Now here we can see here dress, children, it has 0 children, it has 1 children, active is true, created at, and then we can see here in the actions, but we don't want to show this active, true and false over here to the users. So here we'll use this button component in order to show it. So now let me go to this here in the index of this category, and now here children count, let us also show here the button. So let's say over here span like this, and let's say button, we have already imported this button, and here let's say b dash if the item children count is greater than 0, then we'll show here in the button, and I'll say here items dot children count like this, otherwise b else. We'll make it a link so that whenever we click on this button it will take us to the children of these categories. So here I'll say href like this, and I'll say here route admin dot, we have this route resource, so this route resource name resource dot index, and parent ID will be item dot id, and let me add it to the next line over here, and this will also go in the next line. And also let us make this small, so here I'll say here small like this. Now here also let's say button, and let me just copy this thing and just add it over here. If it is active then we'll say here active, otherwise we'll say inactive. Similarly we'll say small, but it will not be a link, it will just be a button, and here also we'll say color like this, and if it is active then we'll show green, otherwise we'll say red. And if we look here inside this button component, we have this red and green over here already. So if I just save it and come here and refresh the page, then we can see here like this. So both of them are active, so it is showing green and this is 1. Now if I click on this, then it will take me to this next URL, this parent ID equals to 1, but also it is showing me the same thing, so we'll fix that. If I just come here in the categories controller over here, and then let me just do here when request parent ID, so I'll just write here builder. If there is a parent ID, then we want to show this builder where parent ID is. You can just write here request parent ID like this. But if this parent ID is not present, if this parent ID is not present in the URL, then we want to show the root URL only in that case. So I'll just do here fn builder, I'll say builder root. So I'll remove this root from here now. So after this, let me refresh the page, then we can see the root categories because there is no parent ID over here. But if I just click here, then you can see a parent ID, and you can see that book is also being selected over here automatically, and we can see the children of that book category. Now if I go back, then we can see all these things. And also let me search for dress, then we can only see the dress. And if I go inside here and search for comedy, and if I just do dash like this, then it will not search anything, and if I click back, then everything will be available. Now let me click on category, then it will show me all the categories. So we have completed the listing and filtering. Similarly, we need to do the filtering for the active as well, so let us do that. So let me just do here. So we have already done that, but we have to go here in the filters, and let me just duplicate this, and let me say here active, and let's say active, and instead of items we will pass here yes and no. So here will be ID will be 1 and name will be yes, and similarly ID will be 0 and name will be no, like this. And if I come here and refresh the page, then we can see here yes and no. So the values will be 1 and 0. Now if I click on yes, then we can see both, and if I click on no, then I will not see any one of these. So I'll click on select, I'll just see all the active and inactive, but for that we need to make one inactive, and in that case we need to do the edit. Now if I click here in the edit, then we can see here this error, and it is saying me undefined relationship roles. So let me go here in the categories controller and go on the create method. Here we don't want roles, we want root categories, and let me just duplicate this one from here and paste it over here. Similarly, let me also do the same thing over here, and we don't want this thing over here. Now let me go to this filters, sorry, not in the filters but here in the create, and here I have this name, then I'll need here slug. So name and slug will be the same type, so I'll just duplicate this, I'll say here slug, and here will be also slug. After this, let us show that root categories. So here I'll just remove these things from here. Also in the props, I think we need to do here root categories, but before that let me copy this thing, and here, so instead of roles we'll say root categories, and here will be parent ID, and here we don't need this, we need slug and we need active, and by default active will be true. So after this, let us just search for role over here, then we don't want this role, so here will be slug and active and then parent ID like this, and it will be here underscore ID, because if we just see here in the category resource, then we have this parent ID like this. Now let me search for role again, and here will be parent ID, and here will be the root categories. So we don't have now role over here. After this, let us just come here and refresh the page, and then let us click on, first of all let us just do add new, then we have this name, slug, role, and we also need here active or inactive. So for that also, so let me just go over here at the bottom. So here select group, and here is the role, so we'll just write here parent category, and here instead of role I'll say here active, and here will be the items. We'll just borrow these items from these filters. Later on we'll create our own this separate select group for this yes no select. So I'll just copy this thing from here and I'll just paste it over here for now. And here we are writing 1 and 0, so I think we can write here true and false like this, and instead of parent ID we'll say active, and here also we'll write active, and this will be required, this will also be no, this will not be required because the root categories will not have the parent ID. So after this, let us just refresh the page, then we can see here yes is automatically selected. But I think if we go here inside this select group, and if we just go here without select, we can just pass this so that that select will not be visible. So we'll just write here without select like this, and if we do that, then this select will be invisible. If I just refresh the page, then there will not be that select, so user must either click on yes or no. Now whenever I write something over here, this slog should be automatically generated. So let us do that. So for that, let me just import this thing from here. So this thing, I have already done that method, so I'll just do it over here. This kebab case replace like this. Then let me go over here just under the form, and then let me write this watch over here like this, and let me import it also, and we'll watch the form name, and if it is changing, then we'll just replace our name with kebab case. And if we find this ampersand sign, then we'll change that to this and we'll only do this if we are creating the category, but not when we are editing it. After this, let me go here and refresh the page, and let me just write here Laratips YouTube, and if I just write here like this and then wow like this, then this ampersand will be changed into and. Okay, so I'll just write here Laratips YouTube active, let's say no, and in the parent category we will not select anything, and click on save like this, and the active field must be true or false. So it is not working this way. So now if I just go over here, I think I can pass here 1 and 0, and let me come here and let me just refresh the page and write here Laratips YouTube, and just select here yes and click on save. Then it is saying me that field slog doesn't have a default value. Now we need to work on the storing of these categories. So before that, let me also go here because it wasn't selecting by default. So let us just create a checkbox over here, so it will be easier that way. So here, and we already have a checkbox over here, checkbox like this. We can use this, but we already have input group and select group, so let us create checkbox group as well, and I have already created that component. I'll just add it. So let me create that checkbox group.view, and let me paste the code over here, and it is similar to that of the input group, and code will be available in the GitHub, you can check that. So here is this label checkbox and this input error. So in case of the model value, here will be checked. Okay, no model value will be there, it will be checked, and if it is checked, then we'll update the checked over here. And now if I just come here in the create, then we can, let me just remove it from here, and we can write it like this over here. We'll just write here b model checked and form.active checkbox group. Let us import that as well. So here I'll just write here like this. And now if I come here and refresh the page, then you can see here active, but it is here at the top. So let me just go over here and wrap it with a div, and let me give it a class of empty-6 like this, and come here and refresh, then it is here. I think it's looking fine. Now if I come here in the categories, so let me go here in the add new, and let's say here Laratips YouTube, and before saving it, let me go to categories controller and look here in the store. So now let us store. So let me just cut this, and let me see here data equals to this, and here I'll say data, because we need another field also, data parent ID and request parent ID like this, and here will be name, slog and active, and the similar thing will be over here in the update as well. So let me just write here like this, and here will be data like this, and I don't need this sync roles over here. Similarly here also I don't need the sync roles. Now if I just come here and not select this parent category, you can see here, so I'll just click here save, then you can see here Laratips YouTube is over here. Now if I come here in edit, and here we can also see this Laratips YouTube, but we don't want the same thing over here. Yeah, we want anything except this Laratips YouTube. So we'll go here in the edit, and here we'll say where ID is not equal to category ID. Now if I come here and refresh the page, then I'll not see the same Laratips YouTube. Now let me click on here active and make it inactive, and click on save, then we can see here red color inactive. Now let me add this Laratips YouTube to this book. If I just edit here and click on book and click on save, then we can see here book 2 over here. Now if I click here, then I can see this 2 subcategories of that category. Now if I just go on back, then I can see both the categories over here. So we have successfully done the updating also. And now if I just go here in the destroy part or delete part, then it is also already done. So if I just click on this delete and click on delete, then it is working perfectly fine. So that's it for this video, guys, and in the next video we'll be looking the Crud for the products. So thank you for watching. Have a great day. Bye.